and baking away, very exciting. I wasn't looking at the camera, I was looking at the red light. Can I do that again?
Yes.
It's a spatula and just a sort of, a spoon for sort of spooning things in. What do you mean she's actually prepared?
I know, it's good, isn't it? Yeah.
Thank you for the compliment.
That was
I'm
a
not
compliment.
always prepared.
No.
I'll deal with you later, young man.
I hope that's a promise.
Dan's salivating the other side of the camera. It smells amazing, I've got to say.
Okay, so out of the oven it comes, onto the side, custard's ready, on it goes, eat.
Is it welcome back?
Yes, I would like to.
So I'm going to go and now give this ball to Dan because he's absolutely dying to eat it.
Welcome everybody to the Bakery Bears video show featuring, for the very last time, Kay's Cosy Kitchen.
Yes.
Now, I can't quite believe it.
I know.
Because it's probably over definitely over a year ago that you were sat just about over there behind the camera, not literally behind the camera. She was sat in her chair and she conceived the idea. Who's she? We say this all the time.
Who's she?
Shocking. Kay was sat in a chair and you clearly you'd been working on something or other and the cogs had been turning as they tend to do, or maybe it was one of your famous early morning.
Maybe it was. Yeah,
where she bursts into the bedroom with my cup of tea and then tells me about a million things. I'm like, I can't keep up. I've literally just woken up. But in all seriousness, she said, look, I've come up with this idea for a show where we share how we eat now. So all the changes that we've made in the past few years to make it so that we can absolutely gorge ourselves on delicious things and not feel the effects in the
That
morning.
ain't true.
It is true.
It's not true. You can't go. You can't eat like you used to
eat.
eat.
Comes to us all, doesn't it?
It does.
Folks?
I think as you
comes to us all.
But it was your tummy thing. But anyway,
yes.
I think as you get older, you can't. I don't think you can eat like you used to eat when you were younger.
But how do you keep up with, at the very least, the lovely things which you've enjoyed your whole life, whilst making the tweaks that make them, lovely and palatable right now? Well, of course, that show became Kay's Cosy Kitchen. And what a show it's been. My goodness. Cottage pie.
Yeah.
Homemade bread.
Yes.
Jam. Pancakes.
Yeah.
What about homemade butter?
That was great, wasn't it?
You got obsessed with patting.
I must make that again because it disappeared in like 3 seconds. You ate it, didn't you?
Shall I tell you something? Actually, understanding the process that goes into making butter changes your perception of it. Because
it's a very easy process.
Yes, but when you understand that basically it's just cream.
Yeah.
That's the moment when you stop putting it on in briquettes on your toast.
I don't. In fact, I don't eat.
Spread it.
I don't eat butter at all these days because I don't eat bread. So
I do.
I don't eat butter.
I eat butter every day. Keeps me young and spelt.
Spelt or spelt?
Oh, spelt. Keeps me young and spelt. I like it. Of course, spelt has been the absolute star of this series. But do you know what? What a wonderful series it's been. And my goodness, do you go out in style?
Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen.
It's so delicious.
It's so delicious, but also what's so tremendously exciting about this recipe is Kay's tweaked it, baby.
Yeah.
This is, this is a favourite of ours.
Yeah.
But she's tweaked it specially for you. And I'm glad she did, because my goodness, as you saw at the start of the show in those outtakes, I was literally, I was like a dog waiting for his dinner.
It was like this behind the camera.
Who remembers that? Do you remember that?
The dog salivating.
Oh my goodness. It was so bad. No. What we used to do, we had a dog, a chocolate Labrador called Prince. And basically we would make his dinner. Yeah. And he'd be like down there and he'd be looking up at you getting very excited. And then we go and put it down for him. He ate his dinner in the hall because it wasn't a carpet. No. So when it inevitably went everywhere, then you could just wipe it up. And what we'd always do is we get him to sit before saying, right, okay, you go get your dinner.
Yeah.
And he'd sit there, like, with his head just still on the side. And literally, I'm not joking you, dribble is coming out of his mouth. Then he'd go, go on in. And he'd, like, go and he'd go
What
for it.
What food did you give to your dog? Our dog... we had a dog when I was growing up called Nell, and she was the most amazing dog. She was 21 when she died, and I was 21 when she died because they got her when I was first born. But she always used to have chappy. I don't know if they still make chappy.
Think perhaps we did give some chappy, but mainly it was like, is it bologna or polony? Bologna. It was like a white...
what, for dogs?
Yes.
I've seen those dog food, like in a sausage thing.
Yes,
I've seen those.
And basically,
never had
you
those.
chop the end.
Yeah.
You squeeze
it out.
You chop off a bit.
Oh, right.
You then put in biscuits
and a bit of water.
Chop it. I don't think it really needed too much water.
Did it not?
No, because it had a bit of moisture. Then you would chop it up, and then down it would go, and away they'd go.
Many years since I've fed a dog.
But look. This isn't dog food.
Do dogs eat how many times?
We're not eating dog food today. Oh no. We're eating the most epic pudding ever. Yes, spiced apple pudding.
Delicious.
And homemade custard.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. In fact, forget the custard. Let's get out the creme anglaise.
Well, that's what it is, isn't it? It's, the French
English
call it,
cream.
The French call it creme anglaise, yeah. But it's basically cream.
And the best bit...
With a couple of other things.
The best bit of all this is why has Kay tweaked this recipe? Because we thought we needed an official pudding of Sockoween.
Yes.
Commencing on the 1st of October.
1st of October. It's rapidly approaching now, isn't it?
And it's definitely apple season Sockoween.
It is, absolutely it is. So that was my thought. So I thought I'm going to tweak it to give it a bit of autumnal spice and a bit of spookiness. There's a little bit of spookiness in there as well. And it's absolutely delicious. So, my thought was that you can all be casting on your Sockoween socks. And what do you need? When you're starting a new project, you need a delicious pudding. Well, I think you do. So you can make yourself some spiced apple pudding, you can get your socks, you can have a lovely time.
You most certainly can.
Yes.
And if you're wondering what on earth Sockoween is, we'll be talking more about that in the Endy Bits at the end of the show. Now, my goodness, it's been quite a 2 weeks.
Oh, hasn't it?
When we put out an extra little special thank you because of all the lovely messages you sent us. But the last time you officially saw us in our capacity as presenters of the Bakery Bears video show, we had a queen.
We did.
And now we have a king.
Look, there she is. She's
always be with us.
I can't point.
She's always been there.
There she is. Look, there's the queen and a corgi.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's always been there. And it's been quite a momentous 2 weeks. We won't dive too much into it because, of course, we put out that special little message. We also put out a radio show last Friday, which you can go and listen to. But since all of that, there's been the funeral. Yeah,
we had the funeral a couple of days ago. So, from one episode when the world felt like a very different place, the Queen was still there, she'd always been there, to now, she's passed away and we've had the funeral and we've now got a king. Well, we got the king the second she passed away, but...
Talk about a good send-off though, I mean, my goodness.
Did you watch the funeral?
The crowds were just immense.
I've been watching a lot of what's been going on and I've had to actually stop watching it because it was just too upsetting. I just found it all too upsetting. But I did watch the funeral and what a spectacle it was, really. And, she's back with Philip now and that just makes me feel good. Yeah.
There was only one thing, and I said to Kay that this is what I would have done, and actually said to you, you must tell me if you hear this.
And they didn't.
But Zadok the Priest, which is a very famous hymn, it was sung at her coronation.
Yeah.
And it's literally, it's as she's coming in and walking in up Westminster Abbey, and that's when the choir then comes in with, and it's phenomenal. It makes me tingle just thinking about it. I was so fortunate to have got to sing it lots when I was in the Minster choir.
Yeah.
Personally, I would have had that. I know to an extent it's a happy tune, but
I think that was the only thing. I do think it needed a bit more of an uplifting music. It was
Perhaps that was the key. If they played Saving the Priest when she came in.
Maybe so. And, she obviously chose all the hymns herself. So you've got to respect that.
Absolutely you do.
But I was missing just that little bit of kind of uplift, because although it's very sad, it's also a celebration, isn't it? Of an amazingly long and just unbelievable life.
I mentioned in the radio show that we put out, and I feel it more and more now, is I feel very comfortable and confident.
I think
the way forward.
I think
King Charles.
I think King Charles will do. I think he'll do us proud. I think he will do a good job. From what I've seen so far,
yes.
The things he's said and the way he's been with the public, I've got confidence that it's going to be okay. It's just different, and it takes some adjusting to when all you've ever known is Queen.
Yeah. And
suddenly, out of nowhere, we've it feels like it was out of nowhere. We've got a king, and it feels weird. Feels weird.
Now, it is such a shame in life that some things have to change sometimes. And, it's a shame in one sense. In another sense, you can look at it in a positive way because it's like the next chapter. It's, it's moving forward.
Yeah.
But there are certain things, though, in the world which don't change. Like, who was the best captain of the Enterprise? There's one answer, Kay.
Well,
you know what the answer is.
I do.
Say it loud.
I do. It's James T. Kirk.
Thank you so much.
It's James T. Kirk.
Why do we bring that up? Because we went to see, the beautifully, oh my goodness, it was the best. A cleaned up 4K Ultra HD version of the best Star Trek film in the history of the world. Yes, it's The Wrath of Khan, baby.
It's not my favourite, but
stop it. It's the best Star Trek film in the history of the world.
The Voyage Home is the best one.
No.
Yes,
look, listen to me.
Yes, it is. We love the whales.
Yes, that's all true. But without The Wrath of Khan, there could be no Voyage Home.
I appreciate
which in turn
I appreciate that. And Ricardo Montalban.
Oh, what a genius. That man.
With his chesticle out all the time.
Just the business.
Brilliant.
It was amazing.
Big screen.
It was amazing.
The cinema was re-showing it because it's the 40th anniversary, and like Dan said,
1983 it came in.
Yeah, it was this cleaned up version, and we sat there and watched a vintage Star Trek film, and it was just brilliant.
Look, Jonathan Archer's cool, and Picard's perfectly fine,
love Jonathan Archer,
and so on and so on. But there's only one captain of the Enterprise.
It's James T. Kirk.
He's a legend.
Yes. Yeah.
Were we in the? Did I do it in the cinema? I can't remember. No, I didn't. Did I?
What?
Come on.
No, I hope you didn't. I wasn't.
No, you were there. You laughed.
I was 2 seats on because Brian was in the middle. We're in the cinema. No.
At some point in that day, it must have been when we were on the way or something or other. I did that. Yeah. That's my favourite line from the film.
It was so funny when we were, at the end. Obviously, when Spock passes away, I'm not giving anything away. This is a 40-year-old film.
Yeah. Look, if you haven't seen it,
everybody knows.
Please.
And if you're going to go and see this in the cinema, you would expect people to have already seen the film several times and know what was going to happen. Yeah. The people behind us were sobbing. God love them. But Briley's looking at me like this.
It's pretty funny.
Like this, and just when it came out, and she's like, did they not know that was going to happen?
What a marvellous experience it was.
Brilliant.
My goodness.
Yeah,
I mean,
Bryony loved it.
And isn't that just... That's so cool, because we did not set out to create a person...
No.
who thinks that films from the 80s are the best.
But she absolutely does. She just loves all of the good films, let's say. Yeah.
Look, that's enough talking, because my goodness, what a show we've got in store. Oh, yes. My jumper is back.
Oh.
Yes, the one with the crazy colour work.
Oh.
What's happened? Did I rip it out?
Did he?
Or did I carry on? You'll find out later on in the show. You've got a marvellous What's Off Your Needles. Oh, yes.
Yes.
It's beyond... it's truly beyond exciting. Kay's very naughty, though, because in my eyesight... there are also some other things which I cannot speak of.
No, that's amazing. There's 2 amazing things over there that I can't talk about yet.
Thank you all so much for your excitement and your positivity and so many people have gone out and bought the marvellous Swirly-Woo socks.
I'll be talking about those a bit more actually in my What's On
Your needles. Talk about stupendous.
Thank you all so much.
Look.
And Bryony's she's got them on today actually.
Yes.
She's wearing the Swirly-Woos today and she's already worn them. I've had to wash them twice since I made them, and that's always the judge of a good pair of socks, you know.
Yeah.
How often do I have to wash them when Bryony wears them? And this is like, I don't know how many times she's worn them, but they've been washed twice in the washer, no problem. Yeah.
So look, enough talk, because there's too much to see.
Yes.
So without further ado, I shall ask Kay Jones, what's on your needles? And she's actually prepared. It's all here.
What do you mean she's actually prepared?
I know, it's good, isn't it? Yeah.
Thank you for the compliment. I'm not always prepared.
No.
So yes, the first thing I've got on my needles is something of a bit of an experiment. And when I show it to you, you might think you know what it is, but actually you don't.
And you'd never guess either.
You might not guess.
No, you wouldn't guess. That's just phenomenal.
Doesn't it look pretty?
Yeah.
So I'll show you what I've done so far. There's quite a lot of ends. I say I need to weave these in. Technically, I don't. I don't actually need to weave these in. And I won't tell you why at the minute, but so look what I'm making, everybody. Mitered squares are back in the house. It's a happy place, isn't it? Oh, fell off the
what?
The model.
Oh right, okay.
Oh, you're very on form today, aren't you?
I don't think so.
Deary me. Yes, so mitered squares. So you might think, isn't this just a joy? Oh my goodness. I'll show you what I've done so far. So are the colours not beautiful for this? Now, I know that not everybody loves brown, but you've got to love that, haven't you?
As soon as I saw it, it's gorgeous.
It's just beautiful. And it goes to here. So basically at the moment, I've got 8 squares along the bottom, and it's 3 squares high, and I've got 3 squares here to put in to complete this kind of long rectangle, and then it's going to start to become something else. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly what that something else is at the minute, because it's entirely an experiment. I did do a teeny tiny swatch to see whether my thought in my head would work, and it did work in the teeny tiny swatch. So I'm hoping in the big version it will work. But aren't these colours just gorgeous?
It's very seasonal.
Actually, can you imagine it as a blanket? I started making this with this random thought in my head of what it was going to become, and as soon as I started making it, I'm like, oh, this would make the most beautiful blanket. Should I just carry on? But me knowing me, I get to a point with squares where I just get a bit weary. I know that if I was going to plan this to be a blanket, it would take a long, long time, which would be fine. Most likely it would probably turn into a cushion. I'm looking at one over there that became a cushion, and I use it as a cushion.
Do you know what? I think one of the things that people struggle with the most, I mean, in my working life, you had good managers and you had bad managers, and I think people who know how to manage other people are rare. And so it's obvious then that we would struggle with managing ourselves. And whilst Kay, she's expressed a huge desire there to have knit this into a blanket, what you've admitted to yourself is that just wouldn't have happened. I
don't think it would have happened.
I think that you sometimes have to accept that and not push yourself into something, because historically you've done that a few times. I've seen it, and you've said on the show only recently how you start off with all the best intentions for this blanket.
Yes.
You have to understand how your own brain works and think, right, okay, what do I need to do so I can create the things I like creating, but into something which actually is gonna...
And I will get the opportunity with this thing to do more mitered squares. But it's not all mitered squares. There's something else going on. And if it works out, I'll be at the point fairly soon. I've only got 3 squares, like I said, 3 squares left to do here to finish this first piece. And then I'll move on to the next section. And if, I'll show you next time. If it's all working out, I will show you. If it works, I think it will be really lovely. And See, my idea with this was that it fills that need to knit a few squares without having the full commitment of like, you know,
project which you're probably never going to finish.
Yeah, this is going to be in a bag for 5 years. And all right, I might finish it after 5 years, but it'll end up being one of those things where you think, oh yeah, I've got to finish that.
Have you ever had a project that you finished after 5 years?
No.
You haven't, and that's because they end up
I mean,
being got rid
either
of.
that or I push through. And I kind of like say, usually what happens if I've got something I've got to finish and I get a bit weary is I'll set myself little tasks every day. So I'm like, right, I've got to do 10 rows a day or whatever. And I'll push through and I'll get it finished. But I think maybe a year and a half, 2 years at the most.
Do you think that that's a big dilemma? Because in life sometimes we do have to push through. But then this is knitting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're not knitting because we need clothes.
No, we're not. No, not anymore. You know, that is why.
And
people...
so, should you? I'm torn because I do push myself to do things I don't enjoy sometimes. But then there's another part of me which is screaming out, "You shouldn't be doing that." No,
and this is entirely a pure joy project because so far I've just...
Well, if this works, I think you've found the solution.
I mean, look at my gorgeous squares, everybody. So the way that I knit my mitered squares, it's exactly the same way that is in my Stitching Time blanket pattern. I just carry on and knit more squares. So my stitch count is the same, my cast on number is the same as in the Stitching Time. I'm using, I think the Stitching Time I did with 2.5mm needles. I'm using 2.75 for this one because I wanted a little bit more of a drape going on. And I'm using these little needles that Dan helped me make actually years ago. I got some, they were those long double points, is it 8-inch? Knit Pro Symphonies. And I cut the end off, or Dan did. And then I put some Fimo onto the end, or I should say I made these little Fimo ends, baked them in the oven and then stuck them on with some glue. And I've used these to knit so many things. My jelly roll blanket was knit using these little needles. Every mitered square that I've ever done since the Stitching Time, because I moved up to 2.75, I've knit using these. So I've knit so many things with these little needles, so it's just lovely to be using them again. My idea with the colours is I wanted all of the autumn goodness going on. So what I did was I dyed up 2 skeins of a brown. Let me put this down and then I can show you. Bryony's favourite, this is not necessarily for Bryony, this thing I'm making. I want it, to be honest. If it works out, then I'm having it. Because I give everything to Bryony, so this one's for me. I say that now and she'll probably see it and say, oh, that's nice, Mum, and I'll give it to her. But anyway, it's a nice thought. So I dyed up 2 skeins of a brown. So I've got these 2 lovely, it's sort of like a chocolatey brown, but there's actually 2 shades of brown dye in this. I used tan bark. Did I use tan? Yes, I think I wrote it down anyway. I think I used tan bark from Landscape Dyes, and then chestnut, which is a jacquard. It was half and half. I did write down what I did, but I dyed both of these in the same pot, so I think they're pretty good match. But actually what I've been doing, just to make sure if there's any slight variation in the 2 skeins, is I've been alternating the balls when I've been knitting these squares. So the first one I'll use, you know, that ball, and then the next one I do I'll use that ball, just so that I'm alternating, just in case there is any slight difference. And then I just went into my stash and chose any yarn that I thought looked like a lovely sort of autumnal shade. So golds, purples, a bit of green is fine, sort of a pinky with brown is fine. Anything that I thought looked autumnal, but then with sort of little pops of brightness going on, like this gold down here is nice and bright, and this peachy one is sort of bright. And I've got them all in this bag. Some of them were like 20 gram minis. I've got a couple in here that are 20 gram minis. These were from Kelly Lay. But then others are leftovers from projects. Like this is Legacy Fibre Arts. I knit a pair of socks in this one. And then this one is leftovers from my rumple socks that I knit recently. So any chunk of leftover that I thought fit in. So I've got a bag full of all of these yarns. I've really no idea how much yarn this will take, so this is why this is really an experiment. But most of these are really good big chunks, at least 50 grams. Like I said, there's a few 20 grammies, but that's fine. So it really is a very organic process that I'm working through. And the next stage is going to be super exciting because, I've got to knit these beautiful, beautiful mitered squares. And the next stage is I'll be doing something that is also one of my favourite things to do. So it's all really, really cool and exciting. And I've been working on this for, 2 or 3 weeks now. And I've just been picking it up and doing a square every now and again. And suddenly, this morning, I finished this one this morning. And I thought, I've only got 3 more to do. So now I really want to get those 3 done. The other thing I've been doing that's been different, that has transformed my knitting of mitered squares, is the way that I've been knitting this, the construction. I decided to make it a bit more fun. Instead of just doing one big long line that's 8 long and then going on top of that and then going on top of that, which is how I would normally do mitered squares, I decided to do it on the diagonal. So I started with that square there that's got the stitch marker on with the brown one, and then I did the 2 coloured ones here and here, and then I did the 3 brown ones going across, and then those 3 coloured ones. Do you see what I mean? I did it on the diagonal, which is why now I've ended up where I just need to fill in this gap here with 3 more. And for whatever reason, that has just been so much more fun than knitting just in rows. So if you've got one of these on the go, and it is like mine, it's done technically in rows like that, just change it and knit it, knit the next 2 rows or something on the diagonal. And it just refreshed it and made it more fun. And I haven't done any of the ends yet, because like I said, you could actually just knot these ends, trim them a little bit and leave them. And that's all I'm saying at the moment, because I don't want to give too much away. The only reason is it's just in case it doesn't work out. I don't like talking about something too much unless I know it's going to work out. That's just how my brain is. Fabulous mitered squares, loving it. And now you're all going to go, aren't you, and dig out your mitered square blankets that you've not touched for a year, and you're going to knit a few squares. And I bet you, Sarah, I bet you want to go and cast on a new one.
And who's Sarah, honey? No one has a clue who you're talking to.
Sarah knows who she is. Dr. Sarah, who knit the most amazing mitered square blanket, but I think it took her about 5 years. Did it, Sarah? Am I right?
And did
it
she
take
post
about
this
5
on
years?
Instagram?
I'm sure she did, yes.
Right.
I'm sure she did. So she's Sherlock.
And what's her Instagram handle?
Sherlock_knits. And if you go look at her feed, I haven't told you about the most recent photo she just posted this morning. She got some ABBA fancy dress costume for some reason, so she decided just to pop it on at work.
I had no clue. I was not aware that the song Dancing Queen was actually written about a queen.
Really?
Yes.
Which queen?
Queen of Denmark.
Of course.
And the Queen of Denmark was at the funeral.
She was.
Yes.
Everyone was at the funeral. Well, not everyone. But
is it not cool that the original Dancing Queen,
yes,
the one who the song was written about,
they should have played that at the funeral.
They should. And I just think that's cool. It just shows you're always learning, aren't you? You're always finding out new things. But to know that the Dancing Queen was written about the Queen of Denmark, I want to move to Denmark so she can be my queen.
Yeah, never been to Denmark.
It's
it looks
marvellous.
Lovely. Yeah.
Where's Lego from?
I think that might be Denmark.
Isn't it Danish? I'm really sorry if we've got the wrong
Danish.
Scandinavian country.
Where
I feel
else
like
could
it
be
is.
if it's not Danish? I think it is Danish.
Yes. Another reason to go live in Denmark. But isn't Denmark very flat?
I don't know. Is it flat?
Look, I'm talking through no knowledge at all. And I'm
Zero
certain
knowledge.
There'll be people out there who know. So look, I love Denmark and I still want to come. But I do quite like hilly bits.
Yeah, Dan likes hills.
I do.
And hills and dales.
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
So, Dan Jones,
Yes.
what's on your needles?
So, it's like, do you remember EastEnders, where
When it was good.
Yeah, there'd be a big dramatic ending. Or any TV show, any TV show which finishes with a big dramatic ending. There was a big dramatic ending the last time I showed you my jumper.
Yeah.
Because I'd used the wrong yarn.
He did.
What a total disaster. And it was very interesting. There was, I'd say it was probably 70% of viewers said stick with it.
Yeah.
And 30% said not.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Well, and you would have ripped it out.
Yes, I would.
But I have not ripped it out, and I'm thrilled with it.
Yes, you decided to use it as a feature.
And I thought...
I think it works great, actually.
My view was if we'd stuck with it up here, that it would have looked like a mistake.
Yes.
Whereas by keeping it down here, where we've gone off the range...
With the green.
With the green anyway.
Yeah.
So then, as the green comes in, it is sort of like it...
Like it was meant to be.
I stand by what I said.
But everybody know, you know.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't meant to be. It was a mistake. But it looks like you could say, and it would be believed.
It looks like it's extra snowy mountains or something.
And I'll be honest.
On a green valley.
I was unhappy with this. I was just feeling so frustrated about it, and I sort of didn't knit on it for a bit. And then I picked it back up, and I thought, right, come on now, get on with it.
I think it looks great.
Thought it through.
It looks great.
And I love this more now
than you did before.
Than I did before.
Yeah, because you've personalised it now, haven't you?
I'm going to wear this
with
more
special
pride.
Meaning.
Yes, I'll wear this with more pride. There's more of a story attached to this.
It looks amazing.
I'm so... Isn't it lovely when... It's sort of lovely to go through that process of the dip. You know, there's peaks and troughs. It's like life, this jumper.
Yeah,
and
it is.
To go down into the dip, to then come sort of rising back out of it and like, do you know what? I really love this. So I'm literally...
I think it looks brilliant. You're very close, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I'm on a dramatic decrease round right now.
Dramatic decreases.
Yes. I'll just make sure.
We're going to have to change a needle fairly soon, aren't we?
Now, she says we. I'll be changing the needle. There are some things...
I just meant it as like...
Yes, I know.
The collective
But long-term viewers, I don't want them thinking that you...
I don't change needles for
She
him
hasn't
anymore.
changed needles for me in about 5 years.
Oh, I don't think it's 5 years, but a long time.
I think it is 5 years.
Is it 5 years?
Yeah, unfortunately. I say this with a due sense of reverence to the fact that we're aging, and it's depressing. But aren't we all? You may as well enjoy it.
Everyone is, aren't they?
Enjoy it.
Apart from Tom Brady, apparently, who seems to look like he's getting younger.
Enjoy the ride. That's what I say. You know, it is about embracing it and enjoying it. So, look.
It looks brilliant.
I've got a decrease round, and then I've got 2 more rounds of plain knitting, and then I'm onto the collar. And the question on the collar is, what am I going to do? Well, what I'm going to do is look at my last 2 ones of these.
And just follow the instructions.
And make a decision as to which one I like the best.
Yeah.
So I might pop on the anniversary, I might pop on the Ridari.
Yes.
And I might see which one sort of like the feel of the best.
Yeah, and just follow the instructions.
And go with that one.
Because this pattern had like a sort of button. It had like an opening and a button. I don't want any of that.
Because I think it rises up a bit further.
Oh, right, okay.
So I think it's probably designed to be a bit more sort of warm, you know, a bit more neck coverage. I don't want that. This is not me choosing not to do it. I don't want that because they're warm enough.
Yeah. Do you stop with the colourwork soon?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I've stopped.
Oh, have you finished the colourwork now?
Yeah, it's finished.
Oh, right. So whatever happens, it's not like you've got to keep with colourwork on that very top neck bit.
No.
So it's just the rough... Is it rough sea, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
which is a brilliant colour. It just looks different every time you look at it. Sometimes it looks like it's got a greenish hue to it.
Yeah.
Other times it just looks grey. It's a really great colour as a neutral, I think.
So...
Oh, it's lovely.
It's the Alexander,
I think it's a bit
course.
festive.
Yes, definitely.
I do think it looks a bit festive.
So Alexander is the design. The yarn is Let Lopey, and it's lovely. And, you know, it's sort of cool. We were trying to work out where this yarn had come from. And I thought, oh, no, I've accidentally picked up something from Kay's stacker. But it turned out it wasn't.
No.
I was like, I was sort of thrilled.
I do remember ordering a few when you couldn't decide on colours. I do remember ordering a few neutrals, and I think it's just from that. We just
I
had
think
a random
that was a
ball.
neutral that you picked as a possible for the stacker.
Probably yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You could be right.
all looking good and very close to finishing.
Yeah.
And I filmed my own you teaching me how to do the underarms.
Oh, right.
So there's a chance I might be able to do the underarms without any instruction
help.
this time. Because on the last one,
I did one and
I did
you
one,
did
I filmed the other.
Yeah.
And the only mistake I made was I ran the tail up.
Oh, yeah.
So I ran it straight down there.
Right.
So that when I then went to take it off, that tail then pulled on the seam and it broke.
That's
so
right.
I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to run it up. Oh no, it was because it was in the wrong place. Anyway, I've made notes.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. Forget all that. What else is on your needles?
Okay. Ah, right. I'm working on my DK weight version of the
check these
Swirly Woos, and I've finished a sock and I'm on to the second one. I mean, it's just brilliant. I'm loving it.
I think they're absolutely blooming gorgeous.
Yeah, I did show you these last time, but I've finished one now and I've started the second. So, and I just love them. And it's, we're coming up to that sort of Halloween time and Sockoween, which we'll talk about a bit later. So I just wanted to get one of them finished and the other one going, because I think I'd like to give these to Bryony for her birthday, which is at the end of October. But look, oh my goodness. Looks like something Stephen West, doesn't it? I know that the Stephen West MCAL is looming, isn't it? But I don't involve myself in that. But the colours made me think of that. So yeah, here's the beautiful sock. Oh, isn't it fabulous?
Is that what people call it? An MCAL?
Yeah.
People talk about the MCAL. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
That sounds like a meeting that you're forced to go to in a sales team where you're discussing mid-season figures. We need to dispense with these business terms.
Mystery cal, MCAL.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where it comes from. I just never... I think he's brilliant. I think Stephen West is brilliant. The things that he comes up with, I don't know where they come from out of his brain. It's just not my style. I know that I wouldn't wear the... I don't really wear shawls so much, but I certainly wouldn't wear the sort of craziness that goes on. And I have knit the Penguono, if you remember. A few years back I knit the Penguono and I really enjoyed the process.
And it's loved by its
absolutely.
its owner.
But I would never have worn it.
No.
So I gave it to Nana Wendy and she loves it. And that's brilliant.
My mum.
That's brilliant.
It gets commented on. She wears it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And because it suits her style,
She comes from that era.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just not that kind of... wearing that type of...
Neither am I.
Yeah, but in socks like this, I think it looks fun, isn't it? Oh, isn't it fun? And I've got the second one now on the go. Cast it on straight away, working down the leg. Just looks fantastic. So the yarns I'm using for this are the sheepies, skippies, I don't know. Merino Soft. And it's lovely yarn. I did have a break in one ball, actually, the ball I'm using for the second sock, because I do wind them. When, generally speaking, if it's on like one of those pre-wound balls, I do like to wind them again just to check for breaks. I like to know if there's one in there. And I did have a break in this yarn. There was a knot, but that's fine. I've not got a problem with it, because the first sock used, annoyingly, I think I had like 23 grams of the green left. So I did use just over 25 grams, so I wouldn't have had enough in just one 50-gram ball, but I did buy two, so it's fine. But I'll have plenty in the black. I think I used like 12 grams for that first sock of the black, so plenty in a 50-gram ball. And it's really nice. I've actually been wearing my socks that I made with this yarn, gosh, for the past week or so. When I put my pyjamas on at night, I've been putting them on in this yarn, and it's the Choose Your House socks, the ones that were Harry Potter themed. And they're just brilliant. They're so cosy and warm, and you can throw them in the washer, and it's just really nice yarn. I've not had any issues with it so far yet. So yeah, at the minute I'm just experimenting with this. It may be what I will do is Possibly I might just add it into the Swirlywoos pattern as a bonus thing at the end. I do have another sock pattern, I think it's the Incantation socks, where there's a bonus DK pattern at the end. It's just one size, but I think it's nice to do that, because although I could do 3 sizes, but I'd need to do a slightly different stitch count to what I think is the appropriate stitch count for a DK weight sock. So that, I'm not sure that I would want to do that. But to put just a bonus pattern that's just like the medium size, the equivalent of the 64 stitch, which I think is the most commonly knit size, really. In my experience, that's the most commonly knit size. Just to add that in as a bonus pattern. So I might do that at some point. And then, you know, you would get an update with that pattern in if you purchased it through Ravelry, so you're not missing out as such. But I'm just loving it. It's just so fun, isn't it? And seeing them, actually, the original ones, the ones I knit for the pattern, the Swirlywoo pattern, seeing them on Bryony's feet, it was just so lovely. I mean, she wears all the socks that I knit, but for some reason these ones just stand out. You know, they really, you see them on your foot and they really stand out. And to see that she loves them so much, I think that's just so nice. I've really enjoyed that. So yeah, DK weight sock on the go, hoping to get that one finished up pretty soon, actually, because they're quick, you know, they're nice and quick DK socks.
So speaking of socks, this really, for me, this sock has taught me how to knit socks. I've always approached it in slightly the wrong way. Socks do need a level of concentration which I think is not evident in any other type of project that I've ever knitted. I think it's because of the sort of engineering that's going on in the turning of the heel and also the toe and all of those sort of different elements which make up a sock. Because I was approaching it in the same way that I approach all the other things that I knit, it was resulting in mistakes and little things were going wrong. And going through the process of making the mistake, you can hold that one up now for me, on the leg of this first sock, and sort of getting to the doorway of, you know, again, another mistake, and it's like, oh, God, I'm just sick of this. And, you know, when you're at that point and you think, right, okay, I'm going to now really invest time in this now and see if I'm always going to make mistakes. And if I am, is it worth carrying on? It's a bit like what we were talking about before with the blankets. Is it worth casting on the blanket with the intention of finishing it and then knowing that you wouldn't? Similarly with me, casting a pair of socks with the intention of, you know, fingering weight and DPNs and knitting the socks, but then things always going wrong. So really applied myself, knitted solely on this, the second sock, for a little bit, but then what I did was, I thought, do you know what? Finished that one off perfectly, got through sort of, the last time you saw this about halfway down the leg, got through that, no mistakes, and I'm thinking, I think perhaps I've made the leap that I needed to make in my mind, which was when I'm knitting these, I've really got to focus. So I thought, right, I'm going to have a break. I'm going to do what I normally do, rotate my projects, get onto something else, and come back to it. I've come back to it, finished it off, done the heel, and just check because my heel is sometimes a bit loose. Could you just check and see if it looks okay or not? So I've come back to it, knitted through the heel, and I feel really good about it. I've not made any mistakes. So I've just turned the heel right at the point now where it's picking up the stitches and everything's good. How is the decreases on the heel?
They're better.
Cool.
Much better than they've been. You've still got a few loose stitches going on there.
Yeah, it just takes...
through here and here. But yeah, I mean, way better than it's been.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool, that's good. So, Moss Eccles socks. Really, really love this pattern, but I'm really sure, I think, unless you tell me that it's a bad idea, that I'll knit the Swirlywoos.
It's the same, you're doing the same thing all the way through the sock.
Don't worry
and you normally like a bit more.
Don't worry about that element of it. Worry about the... will I be able to knit it in the way that I knit socks? Don't worry about me. So I'm a DPN sock knitter using fingering weight yarn, obviously.
Well, yeah, of course you could knit it.
Well, I think it's colour work. So,
well, it is colour work, but not the way that you normally would work it.
And that's all fine. I don't know. I feel drawn to them.
Right.
Like a moth to a flame. Will I get burnt? We'll find out. I just think that has got the potential to bring together two elements of my sort of knitting enjoyment, which is socks and colour work, into one great project.
Right.
And I also love how they look. And I want to see... You see, I think I'll be cool with knitting them because I'll be entranced by... I get excited about what's appearing below my needles.
Yeah.
I get bored seeing plain stitches.
We need to choose you two, like, really stand out yarns, maybe a really dark colour and then something really poppy.
Yeah. I want to be like looking at it and like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm knitting this.
Yeah.
It's marvellous.
Yeah. Well, give it a go.
I don't know, what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea? I do think it's a good idea. And
this yarn's lovely. I want you to it's got a little hat appearing.
Well, that must be how it's wound up.
Yeah, I mean, this ball winder of mine up here, it's the Knit Pro wooden one. It's great, but I have an issue at the moment where the band keeps slipping off, and at first I thought the band had just got too stretchy. I take it off, I don't leave it on, take it off every time it's not in use. But I bought a new band, thinking, right, that'll solve the problem, but it started slipping off again, so I don't know. And then look, can you see what's happening to this? It's got like this strange, basically the inside is coming out.
I mean, it's okay. I've knitted.
It's okay, I'd have to rewind it if I wanted to use that, but I love this yarn is what I want to say, and I want the leftovers, so.
You have all my leftovers.
Well, I know.
I don't do anything with leftovers.
But this colour would go lovely in my mitre square thingy, wouldn't it?
This colour would also go lovely in a pair of those socks.
What socks?
The swirly-woos.
Oh, it would. You'd need a really dark yarn.
That's properly standy-outy.
I mean, if you got...
I'm such an idiot. I mean, actually, that would be perfect, wouldn't it? I should totally knit these socks.
That would look cool. That one is after all this time that I dyed up. See, that would look brilliant, wouldn't it?
Obviously, you can have that because I'll need a fresh ball.
I don't know. I didn't write down this colour, darling. You could use this one here.
What do you mean write down this colour? What colour is that?
I dyed that.
Oh, she's so clever.
But I didn't write it down.
Isn't she clever? I didn't realise.
He thinks that these things miraculously appear.
No, I didn't. I thought...
He says to me, I need some yarn for that project. And I'm like,
that isn't true. That is not true.
You don't ask me to dye things up. I never ask you
to dye
No,
anything.
I choose to do that.
I thought...
I can't get that back in now.
I thought that this was the yak stuff.
No, I dyed that, you fool. It's not yak. There's no yak in that.
I know.
You don't know because you thought it did.
No, I do know now.
How can you not know there's no yak in that?
Because I'm a fool.
It feels totally different to the one that you're knitting.
I don't feel the yarn. I just knit with it.
Oh, so you don't feel it when you knit. Oh, dear me, it's got a long way to go.
No, I don't. Look at the quality of my socks.
It's excellent. It looks beautiful, and I love the colour.
Who would have thought?
Oh, I'll tell you what, Bryony will love these.
She will.
She'll think they're Hufflepuff socks.
This is the reason why I'm knitting them for her. 5 years ago, you would never have dreamed that I'd be knitting a sock like this. At the end of the Dan and Lara project, you'd have wondered if I'd ever knit socks again.
No, that was a task and a half, that.
Stupendous. What else is on your needles?
Well, I've also got a sock, although it's not as stupendous as this one here. Can I have that blocker?
Yes, there you go.
Thank you kindly.
That's all right.
But...
Yes, we can't afford another blocker.
There's the one over there, I don't want to lean. This pair of socks is for a specific purpose. And that purpose is that I'm currently...
What's a porpoise?
It's like a dolphin thing, isn't it?
Okay. Right.
It looks a bit like a dolphin-y sort of thing, a porpoise.
What's the purpose of a porpoise?
Well, you could say what's the purpose of any animal, darling, really, couldn't you? We're all living in this...
No, I wasn't... I just wanted to say purpose and porpoise in the same sentence.
Yeah, right. I mean, where do they get a word like porpoise from?
Yes. Where do they get a word like doily from? It's got to be French.
Doily. It does sound a bit... Does it sound French, doily? But what does porpoise sound like? What sort of word is that? Anyway. So I'm...
Oh, this is stupendous.
Oh, you see, now he realises what it is.
Look, we've already mentioned Sockoween. We're going to talk about it at the end. There's already been people commenting on some of the posts we've been putting out about Sockoween, saying, "Oh, I love your show. I'm really excited about Sockoween, but I'm a crocheter and I've never knit socks before." Fear not.
You can crochet the socks if you want to.
No.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, right, okay. I didn't realise. So what they're saying is they want to learn how to knit socks.
Yes.
Oh, right.
The dots are joined.
I thought you meant they want, because you can crochet socks. Crochet is always welcome with anything that we do. Crochet is always extremely welcome.
But Sockoween, sock knitting Cal, for our lovely Bakery Bear patrons, and to celebrate that, Cal, Kay has recorded. We're in the process of recording now, and my goodness, it's marvellous. It's your absolute beginner magic loop sock knitting series.
Yes.
Try saying that fast.
We're redoing it because the original one is...
You've never done anything called an absolute beginner sock knitting series.
Oh, right, okay. But there is a magic loop series.
There's a beginner magic loop series.
Oh, so you've added absolute.
Yes.
Isn't that a song?
Absolute Beginners was a film with Kylie.
What? But there's a song.
Yes.
She's an absolute beginner.
You're right.
What's that song?
I don't know if it's linked to the film or not.
Oh, right, okay.
Maybe it is. But I remember a film, I think it was her first acting role, was Absolute Beginners.
Oh, I don't know that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I'm such a nerd.
And we listened to recently, Robbie Williams has re-recorded. What has he re-recorded?
What he's done is he has using one of the best orchestras, in my humble opinion, that is currently plying its trade in this place that we call home, e.g. the world. It's the
That's so weird.
The Metropole Orchestre. The Metropole Orchestre is...
Where are they from?
Outstanding. They're Dutch.
Wow.
And they are just brilliant. Look up anything. Just go on YouTube and look up Metropole Orchestre and you'll find a whole range of different styles of music that they turn their hand to, and they're a proper orchestra. They're brilliant. Anyway, Robbie Williams got together with the Metropole Orchestre and he has re-recorded every one of his classic songs. Yeah. And he's rearranged them too, because they're now being played by a full orchestra. And he re-recorded Kids with Kylie Minogue. And she sounds brilliant. Exactly the same.
The same.
To be fair, he sounds pretty much the same. But Kylie sounds exactly the same.
They must both be in their 50s now.
Well, Kylie is.
Kylie's in her 50s. Robbie... He must be round about...
I'm sure he is.
But he's a bit younger.
Kylie's a goddess.
Well, of course. Of course she is, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, she sounds amazing, yeah. Anyway, so yes, we're redoing the series.
I can't believe we got from Magic Loop Socks to Kylie Minogue.
In a seamless way.
You can trace it through. That wasn't a crazy jump.
Yeah, so redoing it. So to redo it, obviously, I need to knit a pair of socks. So what I've done is, this is the first one. I've just created a little pattern. There'll be a PDF to accompany this series.
Yes.
With just a basic Shorty sock. Vanilla Shorty sock. I think I've called it Vanilla Shorty Magic Loop.
Yeah.
3 sizes, so you can pick your size, and then you can knit through the series with me. So I think there's 6 parts to it.
Yeah.
And we just work through the sock the whole way. So
what's been brilliant for me has been, I've been filming this. Kay's been, for the first time since 2015, talking to the camera as if you don't know a lot about sock knitting. Well,
yeah, which is difficult when...
All you've done for the last 5 years...
is knit socks.
But you've also done lots of advanced sock knitting series.
That's true, that's
true. Teaching
true.
Advanced techniques.
Yeah.
So a few times I've had to rein her in a little.
I know, so it's difficult not to go into...
What you've done is brilliant.
Too much of the finer detail.
What Kay's done is she's takes you through everything that you need to do to create
saying,
a perfect sock.
This is how Magic Loop works. This is the needle you will need. This, all of it, just very sort of.
I found it brilliant because it was like a refresher.
Yeah.
For someone who's knit socks a little bit and knows a little bit, but it's easy to get into bad habits and to forget certain things. It's just been so much fun to film.
Yeah, so I'm just about to pick up gussets on the second sock. But the yarn, isn't it lovely? This has given me the opportunity to test run the Malabrigo Ultimate Sock that I've mentioned to you. I think I had it. I bought some, didn't I?
You just put out the first part of the Malabrigo sock.
Oh yeah,
review.
I'm doing a review of it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's the Malabrigo Ultimate Sock, and this is Rosalinda, the colour that I'm using. And you know, it's absolutely lovely. It's a 75-25. It really feels very much like the sort of standard Malabrigo sock, which doesn't have nylon. This one now does. So it's a 75-25, and it really feels very much like Malabrigo sock. It's soft, it's plump, it's bouncy, it's lovely. It's blocked beautifully. This one I've blocked, as you can see. I love the way the colours have knit up. I think it looks great. And it knits lovely. I've got absolutely no complaints. The only thing that happened was, and this could be my ball winder, when I was winding this onto the said ball winder, it just kept slipping down the, I don't know what that bit's called, where the yarn winds around. It just kept slipping, and I've never had a yarn do that before. It does feel quite silky, so it could be that it's just because it's quite a silky yarn. But that's the only thing. I've got absolutely no complaints about this. These have not been worn, obviously, yet, and when I do the sort of, you know, final bit of the review, hopefully I can get Bryony to wear them a few times for me, just to let you know how they wear. But first impressions, it's a great yarn, no complaints at all, and I'm really enjoying filming the series. Actually, it's been really nice just to do something that is back to
basics, baby. Yes,
back to the schoolroom kind of thing, which we're very much in that zone at the minute with Bryony starting sixth form. It all feels very studious in the house.
We're going to do a radio show about this next week. Oh no, it's not next week. It's the one after that. Because next week it's our special question time episode where we're answering lots of questions that people have. But it's an interesting time, actually, the transition to sixth form, because it's a big transition, and so we're going to talk about that in a radio show. But I'm really loving knitting with this yarn. So if you're thinking about buying some and giving it a try, I would say give it a go. It's lovely. Really no complaints right now. It's gorgeous yarn. I must just say, and I forgot to say at the beginning, we spoke about things that don't change. Yeah. For example, James T. Kirk being the best captain of the Enterprise.
Of course.
Something has changed that we don't agree with. Has anyone else noticed how on every top, whether it be fizzy water, whether it be Coke, it's changed?
The bottle tops have changed.
No longer do they screw off and you put down and you pour out your drink. A problem which never in my 46, nearly 47 years on this earth have I ever lost a bottle top.
No.
On a big bottle I'm talking about here.
Yeah, like the 2 litre bottles.
Yes, 2 litre bottles. You know, you have it at home. You don't carry it in your bag.
No.
They've changed now. There's a little catch which keeps them on.
Keeps the top on.
Now, clearly this catch has been designed so you can't screw the top on properly, so whatever's in the bottle goes flat.
Yes.
Because it works perfectly, if that was the reason why it was designed. Some would say that wasn't the reason it was designed. Some would try and tell you it was designed so that you don't lose your cap. How many people have lost a cap?
I've literally never lost a bottle cap.
And why is it?
Maybe it's something to do with recycling. Maybe it keeps it attached to the bottle. I don't know.
Oh, get on.
I've no clue. But let me tell you, do you know what I do? I rip the thing off. It gets ripped off.
She doesn't rip it off politely.
No.
She rips it off with great anger.
In absolute fury and anger that whoever designed this, and for whatever unknown reason that I just cannot fathom.
What I don't understand is...
You can't, because...
I don't understand how this has suddenly gone. You would have thought someone has come up with this idea and it would appear on one type of bottle. It's on everything.
It seems to be on all of them. So, like, where you unscrew your bottle top, take it off. Now it has like a bit of plastic, extra bit of plastic.
Oh, joy.
That it keeps it attached to the top of the bottle. So when you try to, it's not very long, this bit of plastic. So when you try to get the top back on,
you can't do it.
You're not completely flat and you have to mess around with it for ages.
Kilter. No, it's off kilter.
Well,
and you
it
can't
is
screw it on properly.
Well, you can if you take 25 minutes to get it completely like flat, and who has time for that?
Well, you don't.
I rip it off
Life's
so that it's back to how it was originally. Yeah. If someone can explain to me why that's been done and me accept why that's been done, that would be a brilliant thing.
Totally ludicrous.
Talk about over-designing something.
A ludicrous adventure?
Really?
Invention to fix a problem
really?
which didn't exist.
Are there not better things to think about?
Yes.
Than, like, let's just create something that doesn't need creating in the first place.
We need something to calm us down after that moment of frustration.
Pudding.
And yes, it's time to say goodbye to a new friend. About 4 years ago, we started changing our diet so that we could eat the things that we loved, but it would still, suit our ageing constitutions. I think it's fair to say what you've done over the last 4 years, sort of reinventing all the things that we love. It's just, it's been amazing, really.
Yeah, I mean, I suffer with IBS, and
so do I.
Generally speaking, I do have blips now and again, but that's more stress related. It's not necessarily what I've eaten. But generally speaking now, the situation is much better with tummies, isn't it, than it was.
And of course, as we said at the start of the show, we've shared those secrets with you in this wonderful series, Kay's Cosy Kitchen, and today it's time for the final episode.
Yes.
We're going to go out in seasonal style, yes. Oh yes, with a gorgeous pudding. This is Kay's Cosy Kitchen.
I love cake. But I've reached the point in my life where cake no longer likes me. What if I was to tell you that there is a solution? A way that we can eat delicious meals and still feel great afterwards. In this series, I'm going to show you how I do it, and there won't just be puddings. There'll be retro dinners and storeroom staples too. This is going to be so much fun. So welcome to my Cosy Kitchen. Welcome everybody to Kay's Cosy Kitchen, and what is actually the final episode in this series, which is amazing. I can't believe we're at the final episode. So we've gone through in this series a whole host of fabulous recipes of things that we actually eat now on a very regular basis. So we've gone from sort of freshly baked bread and homemade jam to main meals of things like bolognese and pasta. So it's just been fantastic, and I've so enjoyed it, and I hope you've enjoyed maybe cooking along a little bit with me. For this final episode, I've kind of not, I won't say I've saved the best till last, because they've all been fantastic, but I'm really excited about this one because this recipe is an absolute family favourite, but I've done a bit of tweaking and a bit of modifying, and it's just so lovely. And the reason I've done that, there's a couple of reasons actually. The first is that we're now in September, it's just got all of those autumn vibes coming through, and it's just the best time of year for me. I absolutely love that change when you see all the leaves and the crisp air, and it's just lovely. So that's one reason. But then also, we've got a really exciting knit-along coming up in October, our Sockoween. And I was just thinking on my walk recently about the two things and how actually this recipe really ties in with the whole feel of Sockoween. So I've made some changes to this kind of family favourite, and it's now going to become the official Sockoween pudding. So how exciting is that? So you can make this pudding and you can cast on your Sockoween socks, and it's just going to be fabulous. So the thing that we're going to be making is very seasonal, and it uses a very seasonal piece of produce, and that is the great and glorious apple. Oh, I've been so excited to do this, because to be fair, you can get apples these days all year round, can't you? However, traditionally, apples were an autumn harvest type fruit, weren't they? So that's why I really wanted to save this for September. And we're going to be using really the king of all cooking apples, in my opinion, and that's the Bramley apple for this recipe, because there's no comparison really. In terms of a cooking apple, for me, a Bramley is just perfection. So yeah, this recipe is now called the spiced apple pudding. Oh, so excited, because I'm adding in my favourite spices, and I'm adding in a couple of other things as well that give it a bit more of an autumnal vibe. But not only are we making the pudding, we're also going to be making some delicious custard from scratch. That's super easy, there's no panic, it won't curdle. Oh, now I've said it now, haven't I? I've said it, it won't curdle. I've made this dozens of times, the custard, and I've never had an issue with it. So we're going to be making a spiced apple, delicious pudding and some glorious custard to go with it. Oh, so excited, can't wait. So I think it's about time to really dive into that recipe, and first thing we're going to do is the actual pudding, so let's see what ingredients we're going to need. Okay, so we're going to start over here with our flour, and as always these days for us, I'm going to be using white spelt flour. You don't have to use spelt, you can just use plain, normal white flour if you prefer. We've then got two different types of butter products, if you like. Now I've got real butter here, so I always use Country Life, that's my favourite brand, I've used it all of my life, but whatever is your favourite butter, and I always like using salted as well, but I know some people prefer unsalted, entirely up to you. Now I've also got stork. Now those in this, everybody that's in this country will know what stork is. It's basically like a margarine, and I know that some people will not want to use margarine, and that's entirely up to you. You can just use butter in both cases. So when I use the stork, you can just replace it with butter. Do entirely, you know, what suits you, but I've just always used stork for making cakes and sponges. It's just really light, it produces a really light sponge. Butter produces a bit of a heavier sponge, so it's up to you. We've then got some caster sugar at the back here, white caster sugar. I've got 2 nice large eggs, and then I've got a different sugar here. I've got some light brown soft sugar. We've then got baking powder, a lovely unwaxed lemon, and then apples. I've got 3 apples here. I probably won't need all of these, but the amount you need in grams, for me it's about 2.5 of these apples. So it depends on the size of your Bramley apples. But yeah, these are lovely, gorgeous English Bramley apples. We've then got my favourite mixed spice blend, which is the Schwartz one. Vanilla paste, the proper good vanilla paste. And then finally I've got some currants here. You're just going to need a handful. There's no sort of particular grammage, if you like, for that. I just throw in a handful. You'll see when we get to it. If you don't have currants, you can use raisins, you could use sultanas, you could use chopped apricots, entirely up to you. If you don't like dried fruit, you can leave it out. You don't have to put them in, but it just adds a little bit extra autumnalness. That's not a word, but you know what I mean, for me. And I like to think that they look like little spiders in there. You can tell your children and your grandchildren that there's spiders in their pudding, which I think is fun. So there we go, that's all of our ingredients for our lovely pudding.
Let's take a look at what equipment we're going to need.
Okay, well, just leave it like that, you see it. So now let's take a look at what equipment we will need. Okay, so we've got our weighing scales over there. Always use weighing scales. I've got a nice pan for making our appley mixture. I've got a Pyrex dish. This is what I'm actually going to bake the pudding in. This is a really, really, really old Pyrex dish. You can see it's a bit chipped here, and I've just had it forever, and the amount of things that have been cooked in this I couldn't even tell you. I think I pinched it off my mum about 30 years ago. It's just the sort of perfect size. I couldn't say exactly what size it is, but you can see here with my hands the kind of size that that is. So you're going to need some form of dish to bake your pudding in. It doesn't have to be Pyrex, could be porcelain, you know, whatever you've got. I'm sure you'll have something of a similar size somewhere in one of your cupboards. We've then got a mixing bowl, just a normal mixing bowl. I've got my lovely pink Smeg mixer. Now, you don't have to have a pink mixer, but I do feel it adds something to the pudding, but that's entirely up to you. If yours isn't pink, it's okay, don't worry. And then we've got some measuring spoons, a spatula, and just a sort of, you know, a spoon for sort of spooning things in. So that's everything we're going to need, and the first thing we've got to do is make our delicious appley mixture. So let's get to it. Salivating the other side of the camera. Okay, so the first thing to do is to deal with our apples. So before I do that, I'm first of all just going to juice my lemon. So to get the most juice out of a lemon, you probably all know this, but if you give it a good roll, then it releases the juice inside and just makes it easier to juice, and also you get more juice. These lemons actually are really nice. I think they're Sicilian lemons that Dan gets from somewhere. All I do to juice a lemon, if you've got a lemon juicer machine thingy, then I mean by all means use that. I don't bother. All I do, I just use my hand as a sieve, and I just squeeze the lemon into my hand, and then it catches the pips in my hand. So we don't need to worry about having an actual juicer. Gosh, there's a lot of pips in this lemon. And the lemon juice serves for two purposes really. One is that it adds a bit of extra flavour and a bit more sharpness, but also it will stop the apple going brown as you're chopping it up. Managed to do that without any seeds in the juice. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of the juice in there, just so that as I'm chopping the apples and putting them in there, they're gonna hit that juice, and it'll just help them to stay white and not to go too brown. So now I'm just gonna chop up the apples. If you've got an apple corer, you can use that. I don't. I'm old school, and I just quarter them and then just deal with each quarter. So I just scoop out that centre section. If you do get any little bits of brown like that, you can chop them out if you want to, but it doesn't really matter. And then we're just going to quickly peel them. I've never used a vegetable peeler my whole life. I've always just used a little knife. I never peel potatoes or anything using a vegetable peeler. I'm way quicker just using a little knife. So altogether you'll need something like 600 grams of apple. That's sort of raw weight like that, not peeled weight. And if you've got a compost heap, your peelings can go on the compost. So each quarter now, all I'm going to do is just chop them into chunks about this size. I don't know what that is, but you can see just nice sized chunks. And as I do each bit, I'm just going to throw it into the lemon juice. You can see as it hits the lemon juice, that'll just help it to stay white, because they go brown really quickly. So this portion, you know, don't sort of get interrupted while you're chopping your apples. Just get on and do it and pop them in your lemon juice. So I will just carry on chopping up my apples, and I'll see you back in one sec. So that's all of our apples in the pan. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the rest of the lemon juice into there, and then just straight away just turn the apples over in the lemon juice and coat them, and that will stop them going brown. That's fine. So now we can add in the other things that need to go into our lovely appley mixture. So first of all, I've just got 20 grams of butter there, and this is the real butter. I'm then going to add some light brown soft sugar. You can just use normal white sugar if you prefer. I like using this brown sugar, the soft brown sugar, because it has a slightly sort of caramelly taste to it, which just, you know, adds to the whole autumnal feel. So I'm going to add about 2 heaped tablespoons of the sugar. Because Bramley apples, because they're cooking apples, they are sour. You know, you can't eat these raw. And they do need a bit of sugar. However, I do like that the contrast between the sweet sponge, the sweet custard, and then the slightly sharp apples. So, you know, there's some sugar in there for definite, but there's not an overload of sugar. I'm then going to add some of my favourite mixed spice, which is the Shorty mixed spice that I've used several times before. I'm going to add about half a teaspoon, and this will give just a wonderful warmth and a lovely autumnal flavour to the apples. A little bit more actually, there we go. And then I'm going to add a handful. Shall we weigh what a handful is? And then, because I always just throw in a handful, so let's just weigh what I consider to be a handful. Oh, they've gone everywhere, you see, because I didn't just drop them straight in. Right, there's about 35 grams there, isn't there? But, you know, if your hands are a bit bigger, throw in a bit more, it's absolutely fine. Then I just need a couple of tablespoons of just plain water into there. There we go. And then give that all a mix. The butter will melt, obviously, once we start heating. But just coat everything in the spices and the sugar. And now we're going to cook this for probably, you know, 5-10 minutes. What we want to happen, I'll just put the heat on. We want the sugar to dissolve, and we want the apple to start breaking down a little bit, because what Bramley apples do is they go kind of fluffy, and this is why cooking apples are the best for this. If you use eating apples, they don't break down, they'll stay looking like chunks of apple. And what these type of apples do is they'll start to break down and go fluffy. Now we want to get to the stage where we've got still a bit of bite going on, but then also some fluff going on. So we just want some nice apple fluffiness happening. So I'm going to pop the butter, pop the butter there at the bottom so that'll melt quickly, and then just keep giving it a little bit of a stir every now and again for, like I say, 5-10 minutes until we get to that fluffy stage. So here we go. This is after 5 or 10 minutes. You can see what's happened is that the apples have started to break down and we've got this fluffy mush going on, but the apples are still nice and chunky, and they've just got a little bit, you know, that they are definitely, I could put my spoon through that and it would go through. It smells amazing. So what I'm going to do now is just pop it into my dish that we're going to be baking it in. All that I've done here is I've just buttered it nice and generously. So I'm just going to tumble my delicious mixture in here, and as I do this, I'm going to suggest something quite radical as well for this pudding, and that is that I think it would make a brilliant substitute for Christmas pudding for those who are not fans of the traditional Christmas pudding, because it's got those smells of Christmas because of the mixed spice and the dried fruit, and the, you know, even the apples I think are kind of festive. So I'm just going to let that cool down for a bit now. We don't want it to be boiling hot when we put our topping on, when we put the sponge on top of it. We just want it to have cooled a little bit. Okay, so we're now going to make the sponge topping, and I'm going to explain to you how I always make my sponges. I take, in this instance, I'm using 2 eggs because I know that that's going to give me, in old money as you would say, if some of you might understand what I'm about to say, but it'll give you about a 4-ounce mixture, which is usually the amount that you would make for like a basic Victoria sponge. So the first thing I do is I weigh my eggs. So in this case I'm using 2 eggs, so I'm going to weigh them, and they're 135 grams. Now if I just change that, you can see it's 4.8 ounces, so they're nice large eggs, that's good. So what I know now is that the other ingredients, so my butter, my sugar and my flour, I need the same quantity. And that's how you can make a sponge without actually having a recipe. Just weigh your eggs, and then the other 3 ingredients you want the same amount. I'm going to bring in my bowl and zeroise it, and then I know that I need 135 grams of sugar, flour and the butter. So we'll go with caster sugar first. So 135, there we go, 135. Zeroise it again. Same of flour, there we go. And then the same of the butter, or in my case, stock. Nearly there. Oh, okay, I'll allow that gram because it's difficult to take butter back out. So that's all the kind of basic ingredients, the dry ingredients. So we can now add in our eggs. I can take it off the scales now. So just crack in your eggs. So this is what is known as an all-in-one cake mixture, because we literally just put everything in and mix it. The sort of traditional way of making a sponge would be you would cream the butter and the sugar, and then you would gradually add in the eggs, and then you would add in the flour. That just takes forever for me, and this always works perfectly. You just put everything in a bowl, mix it up, it's perfect. So now we need to add in some baking powder, because the flour I'm using is a plain flour, it's got no raising agent in there. So if you were substituting the spelt flour for self-raising flour, for example, you wouldn't need the baking powder. So I'm going to use sort of like a flat teaspoon of baking powder. The general rule for the spelt flour, if you want to make it into self-raising flour, is for every 150 grams of flour you would need 1 heaped teaspoon of baking powder. So I've got 135 grams, so it's a little bit less than that. So I will just make it a sort of more level teaspoon of baking powder. And then the last thing I'm going to add is a little bit of vanilla, because you always have to have vanilla. In my opinion, you've always got to have vanilla in your sponge cakes. So this is a paste, it's a vanilla bean paste. It's a really good one. And I'm just going to drop in a bit. So all we need to do now is get my lovely pink mixer and just mix it up. Okay, so that only took, I don't know, 3-4 minutes, something like that. You don't want to overbeat a sponge mixture. You just want to amalgamate everything, get some air in there, and that's ready to go. And I always find that using the method that I've shown you, where you weigh your eggs, it just always produces the perfect sort of batter consistency, sponge batter consistency. You never have to add any milk or anything like that. So now I've preheated my oven. I've had that heating up to 180 degrees C. I'm going to go and get my appley mixture, which has been cooling, and then we can put the topping on. It's still warm, but it's not sort of that boiling hot straight from the pan. So now all we need to do is get our topping onto our appley mixture. And I found the best way of doing that, when you've got like a sort of, it's not liquid, but it's a soft consistency, is we dot lumps of the sponge around the edges, and then we go into the middle and go all the way around the edge, and that stops it kind of splurging out of the edges, the apple mixture. I mean, does this not look like the most yummy thing ever? So we've done it all the way around the edge, and now go into the centre. And then the rest of it just sort of blob around, and then we're going to smooth it off. And then just take your spatula and gently push it around so that we've gone all the way to the edges with no gaps. Beautiful. And then just smooth around and make a kind of dome so that the sides are a bit lower than the top. Okay, perfect. So now we can pop that into our preheated oven, and it will take 25-30 minutes. Just keep an eye on it. You'll know when it's done because your sponge will have risen up, it'll be lovely and golden, and when you just sort of press down with your finger on the sponge, it'll bounce back. So into the oven it goes. So that's our pudding in the oven and baking away. It smells delicious already. So come back in part 2 when we are going to be making that yummy custard. Oh, if you've not made homemade custard, everybody, you've got to have a go at making custard. It is the most delicious thing. So join me soon in part 2 to get going on that custard.
Now that's what I call a pudding. It's right up there for me with rhubarb
Crumble.
Oh, yeah. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really sort of, that's so seasonal, isn't it, too?
Yeah.
Is rhubarb this time of year too? Or is that spring?
Well, it depends. You can force rhubarb, can't you? So you can get it at different times of year these days,
right.
But generally it's...
Have you made crumble with spelt flour?
No, I haven't.
That might be genius, you know.
I might have to make a crumble because I think Bryony would like crumble as well.
Speaking of genius, the spelt transforms that sponge.
It's very light. It's a really light flour.
Kay summed it up because what it does is, if you make it in the normal way, you'd eat that and then you'd need to go for half an hour's kip because it would totally weigh you down.
Kip.
You make it with spelt and you can eat it and carry on with your day. It just is utterly tremendous.
It makes a very light sponge. The flour itself is very light.
Yes.
And that's just the nature of it, I think.
What we found as well with spelt is, specifically with spelt bread, it keeps for much longer.
It does seem to keep, yeah.
You can be toasting that bread 6 days after you've made it.
Yeah.
And it would be off a different loaf.
Yeah, I do think, because I think breads these days that you buy tend to have a lot of moisture in them, don't they? They're a bit kind of wet feeling somehow.
Yeah. Spiced apple pudding, though, needs only one accompaniment, and that is, of course, custard. So in part 2, yes, the drama really begins. Will it curdle? Of course not, because Kay's perfect tip means even if it does, just keep whisking and it'll come back to gorgeous custardedness.
Well, it's Delia.
Yes.
I do mention
Delia's tip.
it's Delia's tip, but it works. You know, well, of course, it would work, wouldn't it?
Because it's Delia's.
It's Delia.
Oh, yes. Look, that's all for part 2.
Yeah.
And before that, we need to find out, Kay Jones, what's out of your tumble dryer?
So, look, I do have something off my needles as well, but I brought something else to show you because we've recently had to buy a new tumble dryer, and that's not the reason I made this, because we had a tumble dryer before, but I was using, or I had in the tumble dryer for ages, one of the dryer balls, and I bought it. I can't remember where I bought it from, but it was grey, and I'm still using it. And it had like a little sheep's face sort of felted on it. Well, the sheep's face is kind of long gone, you know, the poor thing, and it's just a grey dryer ball now. But I just thought to myself, why can't I make a dryer ball? Because surely, to goodness, it's just a ball of wool, isn't it, really, that's felted. And I think the one that I bought looked like it was fibre rather than yarn. But I thought I'm just going to give it a go with yarn. So you'd got a random ball of Lopi left over.
Yes, in the quest to try and find out the random ball which had snuck into my project where I used the wrong coloured yarn, we were going through and we found a leftover ball from the Ridari.
Yeah, which is a natural colour. I didn't want one that was dyed because, you know, I didn't want any of the dye coming out. So it's just a natural colour. So I thought, right, I'm just going to wind it. It's a 50 gram ball. I'm just going to wind it into a quite tight ball. And then I'm going to wash it with some towels on a sort of fairly hot wash and try and felt it and then bung it in the dryer and see what happens. So I did that and it's kind of worked. It's not fully felted, But look, can you see? For a first go, it's pretty good. And I was worried that when I put it in the washer, my end would come kind of unravelled. But what I did was when I got to that end, I tucked it like underneath and over and in and out. So I sort of hid the end within the ball. But I popped it into one of those little Wool Warehouse bags that you get. I took off the ribbon and I just popped it in one of those bags and tied a tight knot. So I thought if it does come unravelled, it's not going to go everywhere in the washer. It didn't come unravelled, and it was only on a 40-degree wash. I don't tend to wash really hot. Shall I tell you the reason why I don't wash really hot? And this is another bugbear of mine, is that I do sometimes want to wash towels or bath mats at like 60. And my programme for a 60-degree wash on my washer is like 2.5 hours long. And who needs to wash anything for 2.5 hours? And that's not the longest programme on there. There's ones that are over 3 hours. Why? Why do we need to wash anything for 3 hours? How dirty must it be? I mean, there is a 90-degree hot wash on there. I don't think I've ever washed anything in 90 degrees. I can't imagine what I would have to wash. It's not very good for the environment. No, and these days, everybody says wash at 30, save the planet kind of thing. So I do wash at 30 generally for everything. And there's a programme on my washer that's a 30-minute wash at 30, works perfectly because nothing really gets dirty. But anyway, yeah, so this went on a 40-degree wash for like an hour and 10 minutes, I think it was, with some towels. And it seemed to work really well. So I did put it in the dryer. It was soaking wet, obviously, when it came out. And I did put it in the dryer, but it was quite heavy. It's definitely heavier than the other dryer ball I've got. And that's, I think, because I've used yarn rather than fibre, maybe. Or maybe I wound it too tight. I'm not sure. It's quite a solid ball, so maybe I shouldn't have wound it too tight.
It's fine.
But I think it'll work, so I'm going to bung it in the dryer. I think the more I have it in the dryer now, the more it will felt. I feel like, with that heat and the friction, I think that will felt a bit more. But yeah, that kind of worked.
Now look, I can see down here a gorgeous pair of mitts.
Yes.
I want to see them.
So I was knitting these a while ago. You might remember me showing you these a few episodes back. But I finished them and they're lovely, and I'm going to pop them on. I get them on the right hands.
No, that was the right hand.
Is that the right hand?
That's
yeah.
the right hand.
So this was some yarn that I actually dyed up for a couple of friends, and one of the skeins very happily worked its way back to me. I'm just going to take off my bracelets. So yeah, I got one of the skeins back, which was lovely. And I decided to knit some fingerless mitts, and I finished them. Can you remember these ones? I'll just hold up one. So on the pattern side, if you like, I popped in the texture pattern that's in my Twinkle and Dance socks. I just did it a bit more frequently, so it's a bit more intense than on the socks. And then it's just plain on the palm. But this colourway I called Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail. I just thought it looked like those sort of lovely rabbity shades. And I've finished them both, so I've now got a lovely pair of fingerless mitts ready for autumn. And these only used about 40 grams, so I do have enough left to make a hat. I'm just not sure whether I would wear a hat that colour. I don't know, do you think I would wear a hat that colour? I'm not sure if I would. No. I tend to wear hats that are sort of darker in colour. I think I'd feel a bit obvious wearing a cream coloured hat, but I'm not sure. So that's why I haven't cast on a hat with the rest of the yarn yet. But the sort of basic pattern that I used was the one that I used for like my Dynamite mitts or the Foxglove cottage mitts. That's the sort of...
Lady Mary mitts.
Lady Mary mitts, that was a patron pattern. They're beautiful fingerless mitts, actually. Got a gorgeous lace pattern down the front. That was the sort of basic pattern that I used, and then I just added in this texture from the Twinkle and Dance, and I think they look super lovely.
Gorgeous.
Really nice. I love fingerless mitts. I think I wear these more than things with fingers on.
Yeah. I want some custard. I want to drench myself in custard. So without further ado...
It's delicious.
I think we should head back for the very last segment ever from Kay's Cosy Kitchen.
everybody to part 2 of Kay's Cosy Kitchen, when we are creating our delicious spiced apple pudding, which is currently cooking away in the oven. And it's now time to make that custard. Don't panic everybody, it's dead simple. Delia taught me how to do this, and Delia, as we know, is the queen of everything. So let's get on and make that custard. So for our delicious custard, we are going to need some, I'll start over here, we're going to need caster sugar, white caster sugar. I've then got some corn flour. We've got our vanilla paste again. I've got 3 lovely eggs. And then some single cream. This is a large pot, this is 600 mils of single cream. So now let's take a look at what equipment we will need. Okay, so very little really to make our custard. All we're going to need is a nice saucepan. I'm just using a fairly small one here. And then a balloon whisk, measuring spoon, and then just something to separate your eggs with. I just use two sizes of bowls. So that's everything we'll need, so it's time to get making that custard. Okay, so first thing to do is to get your cream and just pop it on to start heating up. So I'm using this entire pot, so just straight in. Make sure we get every drop in. And this is single cream. I think in other countries it might be light cream, but I'm not entirely sure. In this country we can get single cream and double cream. Double cream is thicker. You can use double cream for custard, but I just prefer single. So I'm just going to pop that on a fairly low heat, not too high, because we don't want it to burn at all. Okay, so while the cream is heating up, I'm going to separate my eggs, because we just need egg yolks for the custard. So you can keep the egg whites, make yourself egg white omelette, or I think you can actually freeze egg whites as well. So the way that I separate eggs is, again, I just kind of do it the old-fashioned way, and there's a little bit of keeping your fingers crossed with this. I'm just going to crack my egg and then pull it apart gently and let the yolk just drop into a small bowl. And then when you've got a good amount of let the white drop. Whoops. And then you kind of tip it from one half to the other to get rid of the rest. About there. And then drop the yolk in the bowl. Fingers crossed the other 2 go as well. Oops. There we go. Okay, that was all right. So the next thing to do is to add into your egg yolks. I'm going to add a level teaspoon of corn flour. Drop that in. And then a level tablespoon of caster sugar. There we go. And a little blob of vanilla paste. So we get nice vanilla-y custard. And then take your balloon whisk, and just give this a good beat. Now, it's the actual egg yolks that colour the custard. So, I mean, if you've had the kind of shop-bought manufactured custard, it's usually a fairly bright yellow. This won't be that, it's just a really sort of rich cream colour. The better your eggs, then the sort of richer the colour, because really good farm eggs, or if you've got your own chickens, you know, fresh eggs always produce lovely golden yolks. And then the addition of the corn flour, that's my little Delia sort of tip, because Delia always adds corn flour to her custard and it stops it curdling, basically. It stabilises it. So that's our eggy mixture ready. I'm just going to check my cream. Now we want the cream to be hot, but absolutely not boiling. Just kind of to that temperature where it's, you know, that's not hot yet. So it just needs to be nice and hot, but not boiling. So I'm just going to turn the heat up on that and just keep stirring it so that it doesn't catch until we get it nice and hot. Okay, so this cream now, it's nice and hot. There's some steam coming off it, but it's not boiling. So what we need to do now is I'm going to, first of all, add the cream into the yolks. Don't do it the other way around. So I'm going to add the cream over here to the yolks. I'll be keeping mixing all the time. And then I'm going to put all of the mixture back into the pan and back on the heat. Okay, now turn up your heat a little bit. And now what we're doing is keep stirring, do not stop stirring. And we just want it to thicken. Again, we don't want to boil this. If you boil it, there is that chance it will still curdle even with the corn flour. However, if you do find it starts to look like it's curdling, just take it off the heat, put it on like a cold surface and just keep beating and it will come back. But what I do is I just make sure that it doesn't boil. Just keep it nice and hot until you will start to feel it thicken. It won't be like a super thick custard, because I don't think custard really traditionally should be super thick. It'll be like sort of slightly thicker than double cream maybe. And you can see the colour is just like a really rich, creamy colour. And that's just how it should be. Custard, you know, when you make it yourself, I suppose, what is it, the French call it crème anglaise, don't they? English cream. It definitely is more of a creamy colour. It's not that bright artificial powdered sort of custard colour. I can feel that is definitely starting to thicken, and just keep going, be a little patient with it. It might take a few minutes, and keep, you know, adjust your heat a little bit if you feel like it needs it. And once you feel that it's at that, you know, you'll feel it with your balloon whisk, you'll feel it starting to thicken, just take it off the heat and that's your custard done. Okay, so that's the custard all done. You can see it's thickened up. Oh, it looks so delicious, I can't wait. So that's custard done. It's now time to get our pudding out of the oven and give it a try. I've got a lovely portion here. It's hot, that's why I've got a tea towel underneath it. It smells amazing, I've got to say. So yeah, I've got a lovely portion. I've got sponge and appley goodness and custard. So let's grab a bit of everything. Oh, it looks so good. It's quite hot, so. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's amazing. The apples are still really lovely and tart. It's not, you know, the apples underneath are not sweet at all, but the sponge is sweet and the custard is sweet. So you get that lovely contrast. I can taste all the spices in there, which are just delicious. And the little black spiders in there are just perfect. It's a perfect sort of Halloween-y pudding, I think. I'm gonna have another bit. It's the absolute perfect pudding for me, because these days my sort of taste buds have changed a little bit and I don't like things that are overly sweet. So it's absolutely perfect for me. If you do like your puddings sweeter, then maybe put in another tablespoon of sugar into your appley mixture. But I really love that sharpness. It's so, it's just absolutely perfect. So I hope you really enjoyed that. I hope you make some delicious spiced apple pudding maybe when you're knitting your Sockoween socks, that would be so fun. So whilst that is the last of Kay's Cosy Kitchen for this year, you won't have very long to wait because I will be back in December for another Kay's Handmade Christmas. So I will see you back very soon.
So there we go, my goodness, what an absolute classic. Spiced apple pudding and homemade custard. What a perfect way to end the season.
Absolutely. You've got to make yourself some custard, everyone. It's not, you know, if you normally get custard sort of in a pot or a tin from the supermarket.
Don't do it.
Oh, I really like that custard, don't get me wrong. I'll happily have any sort of custard. I'm not going to turn down. But this is like proper custard. Yummy.
It's not comparable, in my opinion.
Yeah,
They're like two different food groups.
Entirely two different things. And you really, if you tasted one next to the other, you wouldn't think they were the same thing.
The custard Kay's just made, it's more like a sauce.
It is more like a sauce. That is true, yeah. It's, you know, obviously very creamy because it's cream in there. And, you know, you don't get that bright yellowness that you get from sort of shop-bought custard. It's a very delicate thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, with the vanilla, it's just gorgeous. It's perfect.
And thank you so much for making that wonderful series. I mean,
you're very welcome.
It's been such a joy. And, you know,
got to eat it all.
Yes, I did. And whilst it's sad to say goodbye, what that actually does, though, is it opens the door for a new beginning. And Kay has come up with, I kid you not, the best, most amazing, brand new series coming in 2023. You're not going to believe it.
I'm quite excited about it.
It will be Kay's main focus through next year.
Yes.
She won't be running two series.
Series.
I know.
It's one of those words, isn't it?
There'll be a 12 episode, and I mean, I shall say nothing more.
Say nothing.
Keep your eyes peeled. There'll be little sort of teasers all the way through the rest of this year, coming into next year, and then it will launch actually January next year, and it's just going to be amazing. I couldn't believe it when she said, I'm like, oh my goodness, people are going to freak out at this.
Hope so.
So that's all to come in 2023.
Yes.
Now, it's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits, everyone.
Oh, yes. Oh, I didn't say, actually. Now, yes, that's the end of Kay's Cosy Kitchen. But next time, My Favourite Colourways is back. There's 2 more episodes to go of My Favourite Colourways. So we've got My Favourite Colourways next time. Finale of Walking the Wall a time after that. And then the finale of My Favourite Colourways for 2022.
And I think we're going to go a little bit Halloween-y next time with My Favourite Colourways. Can't speak.
Beautiful. So yes, now it's time for the Endy Bits, and we've mentioned Sockoween lots so far.
Yeah.
Sockoween is, of course, our big event for October.
Yeah.
It's going to be an annual event for our Baker Bear patrons. There's a knit-along running from the 1st till the 31st of October.
Yeah.
You can knit all the socks.
All the Halloween socks. Or crochet, of course, of course. I mean, if we don't ever say crochet, it's always included in that. You're very, very welcome. Yeah, so we're just going to knit or crochet all of the socks. So you can, if you've got a pair of socks already on the go from last year that you didn't finish from last Halloween, as long as you haven't finished more than one sock, as long as you haven't cast on the second sock, then that would qualify. You can knit DK weight socks. I had a couple of people ask about that, and I thought, yeah, okay, we should include DK weight socks because it's that time of year as well, isn't it? So DK weight socks are good. You don't have to finish your socks is the other thing. As long as you have taken part and you've been actively knitting, you've been joining in, you know, with the conversation, then in my eyes, you've done everything you need to take part in that knit along. So you don't have to finish. So we've got, at the moment, there's just a chatter thread open in our Ravelry group where you can go and you can just talk about what it is your plans are, show yarn if you want to do that. And then on the 1st, I'm going to open an FO thread. So it will say FOs, but like I said, if you don't finish it, you get to the end of the month, just pop in a photo of your partly finished pair of socks and that will qualify. So we will have some prizes. There's going to be some yarn prizes, and there's also going to be 3 pattern prizes, and it'll be 3 copies of a new design that I've got coming out on Halloween.
Amazing.
So that's another extremely exciting thing that's going to be coming up.
And there's lots of other patron exclusive events taking place. Actually starts on the 27th of September and then running all the way through October. Things like Kay's special Absolute Beginner Sock Knitting series.
Yeah.
There's also lots of other little special events going on all the way through October to celebrate Sockoween.
Yes.
And if you're wondering, how can I take part in Sockoween? How can I get involved? Well, it's open to all our Baker Bear patrons. So if you want to just come in at the very basic level for $2, for $2 or the equivalent of, depending on where you are in the world, you can get involved with Sockoween. But not only that, if you became a $2 patron today, you would get access to our latest issue of Knitability. Plus, in October, Knitability is our magazine, we've got our new edition of Knitability coming out. So you get 2 editions of our magazine, but also we've got a special pop show, special patron-only show. It's our hour-long show, which we record live. Now, the live show will be on Sunday, this Sunday, at 2 p.m. British Summer Time. And then, if you want to watch the recording of the show anytime you like, it'll be available from 3:10. And you don't want to miss this show, because this show is our Sockoween launch show, our Sockoween launch party. And a party needs guests.
Yes.
And we've got one, baby.
We have.
Live on the show.
Yep.
We trialled live people on the show earlier on this year when we welcomed my
we
brother.
We trialled live people.
Yes. That sounds very wrong.
It does.
We had my brother on, the composer of all the Baker Bear music. He was on, I think it was in March or April this year.
Oh my goodness, we've chosen some amazing music, haven't we, for next year?
We have. All will be revealed. But yes, in this Patreon-only show, we're going to welcome our next very, very special guest live on the show, so don't miss it. It's going to be epic. You've got some things to show.
I've bought a couple of things, yes. So in the sort of Halloween theme, I've been keeping my eye out for any yarns that I thought fit that bill that I might want to try. And I noticed this, I can't remember how I came across it. The yarn dye is called Yarn Studio UK. And I saw this particular colour, I thought, oh, I'm going to give that a go. And the colourway name actually wasn't written on the ball band, but I remembered it, and it's called I wrote it on, it's called Hubble Bubble. And look how Halloweeny that is. So we've got oranges and greens and black. So it's Yarn Studio UK. The name is way down here. Yarn Studio UK. And it looks lovely. It's a 75/25. The base, the only thing that I will say about this base is quite a rustic base. I have dyed on a base like this. I think when you purchase 75/25, you do have some options as to which one you purchase. This one is definitely a bit more rustic. It wouldn't be my preferred one, but you know, I'm happy to give it a go. And I think, and the other reason I wanted to give this a go is I think this might, I don't know if it will pull. It might do like a little stripy thing. I don't know. But I'm just not trying to get over my pooling issues, but just try yarns. And it might be that I think it's going to pull and it might not do. So it's an experiment as well. And also it's Halloween, isn't it? And if ever there's a time where you could tolerate a sock that's slightly pooly and a bit weird, it's Halloween, isn't it? You know, in that sort of ghostly time. So this might be one that I use, or I might go with a different one. I haven't decided, but I think it's really cool and Halloweeny. And then the other thing I've purchased recently, and I just wanted to tell you about this shop because I've never experienced service in my life from a yarn shop like I did from this shop. It was just phenomenal. I was looking for some particular shades of Blacker Swan. Now all of this yarn up here is Blacker Swan DK, but there were some specific shades that I was looking for. I can't tell you what they were for, you'll find out at some point, but I was looking for these shades and Blacker didn't have them on their website, which is where I normally buy them from. So I just did a general Google and this shop came up. and I looked on it and she had the shades, so I thought I'm going to order from this shop. The price of the yarn I think was exactly the same as on the Blacker, so brilliant. And the 3 shades that I got were these ones. So I got that one's Mountain Berry, so it's Blacker Swan DK, and then I got, this one is Tussock, gorgeous green, and this one is Buttonweed. Yeah, and that's a cute name.
No, it's the middle one. To me, it sounds
Tussock.
like a Scottish swear word.
So it's these 3 lovely shades, and I got 2 balls of each, and I got them from a shop. I think the shop's in Morpeth, which isn't far from us really at all. It's up in sort of Northumberland.
It's a gorgeous place.
Yeah, it's lovely. I'm sure it was Morpeth, and it's called Fine Fettle Fibres. And I ordered this on, it was about 2:30, 3 o'clock one afternoon. At about 4:45, I got a dispatch notice, and I thought, but I can't, all right, maybe I'll get it in 2 or 3 days. It came the next day. So I got it in less than 24 hours. I ordered it in the middle of the afternoon and I got it in the post the next day around midday. The post came. Is that not amazing? And the lady wrote a lovely little note on the bottom. She got lovely handwriting. So it's Judith. And just, that would have, that takes, I know when I sold yarn and I sold bags, I always used to write on the invoice like that, just a little handwritten thank you. And very often these days I don't get anything. Sometimes I don't even get an invoice in with my order. Sometimes I do get lovely little cards, and that's brilliant, but I just think, just add, it's just a little personal touch, isn't it? It's like that person's acknowledged your order and they're appreciative of it. Clearly they're appreciative of it because she posted it that afternoon and I got it the next day. Brilliant service. So I will definitely, whenever I need, because she had the 4-ply version as well of this, so whenever I need Blacker Swan now, because I normally order it direct from Blacker, and the service is always great, but it does take a few days. So if I need Blacker or other yarns, because she stocks, and I think they did their own hand-dyed yarn as well, then I will definitely go back to this shop. And whenever we get really good service, because I think service is something that in this modern world that we live in, it's just one of those things that I think has slipped a bit. Not with everyone, you do still get brilliant service, clearly. So I just wanted to say, if you're on the lookout for Blacker yarns or just want to have a browse in their shop, then I would highly recommend it.
Cool. So on that happy note, we will say cheerio, and we will see you in 2 weeks for more.
Yes, see you soon, everyone. Bye.
Sitting and knitting, it's Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern, get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what's in your oven, or maybe a show